Get cool stuff for what you were going to do anyway. Drink beer. With Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt, you can just snap a photo of your receipt and upload it to the website to rack up points for exclusive merch. Get points for every purchase, whether you're grabbing a pint on draft, a case for a party, or a tall boy at the stadium. Any size, any product, anywhere you buy Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Sign up now at rewards.labattusa.com.
Yo, this is the Burdick Ford and Burdick Toyota pregame show.
Welcome in on the pregame show. Tim Leonard with you, counting you down to a Syracuse SMU bout inside the Dome. About an hour away. We'll get you everything you need to know on both of these teams and specifically SMU as we work you towards the 2 p.m. tip from inside the JMA Wireless Dome this afternoon. We'll be back for the postgame show as always as well. I'll be here with you on CuseSportsTalk.com and on our Cuse Sports Talk YouTube page for our live post-game show simulcast. Be taking your phone calls, and we'll hear from Coach Autry, as always, on the pregame show and on the post-game show as we work you towards a 2 p.m. tip this afternoon inside the JMA Wireless Dome. Syracuse entering at 14-11 on the season. But, hey, at least they gave us a fun game last time out in the Dome. That was a memorable game, to say the least, with the power outages and the double overtime and some wild mistakes at the end of the game and some great plays and 6 players in double figures and the high scoringness of the game. Syracuse was able to get one of their better wins in quite a while when they took down Cal at home and showcased that this team still has plenty of fight left in them and they are still playing hard, even though the situation is very bleak for maintaining the head coach, and the situation is bleak for Syracuse extending their season into a postseason, specifically the NCAA tournament. They sit right now 68th in the net ranking, 68th on KenPom, the site that ranks every single team in the country, and they are slight underdogs this afternoon as they take on SMU, a team that is 17-7 overall. And really what you need to know, the most important thing to know about SMU is this is a terrific offensive team. Not a great defensive team, but SMU is one of the better offensive teams in the conference and really one of the better offensive teams in the country. They're 15th on KenPom's offensive efficiency metric right now, 15th in the nation in terms of where their offense ranks, 91st in the country on KenPom's defensive ranking metric. So overall, SMU sits right now at 37th on the KenPom rankings, 35th in the net rankings. And this starts a stretch here for Syracuse. They got that win over Cal, which was a game they were slight favorites in. They won it 107-100 in overtime or double overtime back on Wednesday night. The Orange are going to play 5 straight games where they are most likely going to be underdogs and considerable underdogs in their 2 games following this one today. SMU slight favorites depending on where you look. KenPom right now has this as an 81-78 victory for SMU on the road, which would be a quad 1 win for the Mustangs. Top 75 teams on the road constitutes a quad 1 opportunity. Top 30 teams at home is a quad 1 opportunity. So Syracuse taking on SMU 35th in the net rankings. That means that is as it stands right now, and it's all fluid, but as it stands right now, that is a quality quad 2 game. The Orange are going to play SMU, which is technically a quad 2 game this afternoon, 2 p.m. tip. They will then have 4 straight quad 1 opportunities after that. And they are projected on all of the predictive metric sites, KenPom, Bart Torvik, Evan Miyakawa. Vegas will line up with all of those. They're projected to lose the next 5 games. So that's the bad news. The good news is that's kind of exactly what they need if they want to have any hope of elongating the season and getting to play meaningful games in March. They will go to Duke on Monday night. A game that KenPom has Duke favored by 20 points, and that feels about right. Duke is one of the best teams in the country. Yes, they lost to UNC at the buzzer, but Duke has been phenomenal all year, and we know that is always a very challenging place to play. So they're going to go to Duke for a big Monday matchup, quick turnaround. Then they host UNC. They are 4-point underdogs on KenPom against the Tar Heels, the 28th ranked team on KenPom's rankings, next Saturday, February 21st. That will be arguably the biggest home game of the season. When you consider crowd size going into the season, we thought that UNC game was going to be the one that everyone was going to try and make it to. Saturday, February 21st. It was a big point in the season. It's obviously not from a Syracuse perspective where we thought they were going to be, but UNC has lived up to their end of the bargain, and the Tar Heels are definitely playing like an ACC contender right now. The one thing to note about UNC is Caleb Wilson. Remember, he went for 22 points when UNC beat Syracuse and really pummeled them, even though it was just a 10-point game inside the Dean Dome back on February 2nd. That was a game where UNC led by 32 points in the second half. Syracuse somehow cut it to 6 points. It ended up being an 87-77 final from Chapel Hill. UNC had Caleb Wilson for that game. He is one of the best freshmen in the country, one of the best players in the country, and likely a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. Caleb Wilson is out indefinitely with a broken hand. We found out about a couple days ago. So that makes that game a little bit more winnable. And remember, Adrian Autry's first year, go back to the 2023-2024 season. Coach Autry's first year, they lost by a bajillion points at Chapel Hill. They came back and they upset a ranked UNC team, top 15, maybe top 10. I can't remember exactly, but they were definitely ranked. They upset UNC that year inside the Dome in a complete reversal of what we saw when they went to the Dean Dome early on in the season. So not saying it's going to happen again, but that is the game at home that Syracuse is kind of in line with SMU in terms of where the projections would be. KenPom has them 36% chance to beat UNC on Saturday, February 21st at home. SMU game this afternoon, which we're working you towards here on our Burdick pregame show, that is a 40% chance right now given to Syracuse on KenPom to win this game. The Orange's projected record at the end of the season, if you add up the final 6 games they have, 5 of them are projected losses, and then they're supposed to beat Pittsburgh at home, who is outside the top 100 in most of the metrics right now. So if you add up that would be a 15-win regular season for Syracuse, and they would go 15-16 in the regular season. And I think we all know what decision would then happen to head coach Adrian Autry at the end of the season. And honestly, I think we all know what decision is going to happen to Coach Autry, even regardless of if they play much better basketball down the stretch here. John Wildtack was on our airwaves this week and reiterated basically the same message that he gave us when he spoke about the season at the end of last year and what Coach Autry needs to do next year to keep his job and what the standard is. He said meaningful games in March. And he even clarified a little bit more when he was pressed and asked about it again this past week on Orange Nation, that meaningful games in March is not playing an ACC tournament game. It is playing games that matter for NCAA tournament purposes. And it does not feel like Syracuse has any chance of doing that at the minute. But that being said, you would like to see the Orange get this one at home today to at least carry on the momentum from what we saw on Wednesday. For there to be any hope of Syracuse flirting with an NCAA tournament consideration or putting together a late rally that no one saw coming, or going into the ACC tournament and being in a spot where if they went on a considerable run in the ACC tournament and maybe, say, lost in the championship game, that would be enough to get them on the right side of the NCAA tournament picture. You have to win this game today. You had to win the game against Cal. You got that win. And it was good to see in the last 2 games, really, the backcourt has stepped up for the Orange. J.J. Starling did have that head-scratching turnover late against Cal. I'm not saying he was perfect. I'm not saying that he was All-American good or anything. And I have been critical of J.J. Starling. I've been very critical of Nathan George as well. And a lot of what I've talked about throughout the season as one of the big reasons for Syracuse being a disappointment this year has been the play of those two, J.J. and Nathan George. And they have played well in back-to-back games. Virginia, there was a stretch where J.J. was sort of unguardable and doing some nice things. Of course, the Orange lost that game, but it wasn't necessarily a bad performance from J.J. or Nathan George. George had a pretty good scoring game. I believe it was 19 points against Virginia. And then he had a double-double against Cal. J.J. Starling went for 21 points against Cal on Wednesday night. So we've seen in back-to-back games, the Orange guards look as good as they have, the starting guards, excluding Nate Kings, who has also been terrific, but we kind of know Nate Kings is good. The thing that we've been talking about throughout the season that needs to step up has been specifically J.J. and Nathan George. They have played well in back-to-back games. Now they go up against an SMU team that they should be able to play well against. This should be a track meet. This should be a high-scoring game. SMU has maybe the best point guard in the conference in Boopy Miller. And we talked about off the top, SMU's offensive metric, 15th in the country. SMU's defensive metric, 91st on KenPom. That's their defensive rating. They play up-tempo. They play one of the faster styles in the ACC. They want to get up and down, and you go through some of their results from this season, they have had a lot of high-scoring track meet type of games. One of their best wins of the season came over North Carolina at home on January 3rd. They're 3-6 in quad one games. That was a quad one victory for SMU early on in ACC play. It was actually, I believe, it was their ACC opener against UNC at home. They won 97-83. They beat, in the third game of the season, Murray State, a team that checks in at 107 on the KenPom rankings, a solid team. They beat Murray State 102-91. They gave up 91 points to Murray State. They then beat Butler, probably their best non-conference victory of the season. Butler actually beat Virginia. Then they've sort of fallen off since. But a solid non-conference win on their resume, which SMU, by the way, is not a projected 9 seed on ESPN's bracketology. They beat Butler by 2 points, 87-85. They are comfortable playing a very high-scoring game. They're coming off a win over Notre Dame, 89-81, to get to 6-5 in league play, 17-7 overall. They beat Pittsburgh in the game before that, 86-67. But you go through their offensive numbers and their defensive numbers, and it just feels like this is going to be another up-and-down, fun game to watch. The question is, can Syracuse keep pace? And can Syracuse also get enough stops to allow their offense to play the way they want, which is a little bit more up-tempo than we've seen throughout much of this season? SMU offensively checks in as the 17th best offense at a points-per-game basis in the country. They are averaging 86.5 points per game. Their defense is giving up 77.5 points per game. That's 274th in the nation. So this is one of the best offenses in the league and one of the weaker defenses in the league. But their offense is so good, and their stars that they have, including Boopy Miller, are so good offensively that it counteracts the issues they've had defensively. SMU led by head coach Andy Enfield, who has done a fairly nice job at SMU. And keep in mind, this is modern college basketball at work here with all the things we talk about, the NIL, the transfer portal. SMU is in a position right now where they have been, of the last 3-5 years, since they've joined the ACC, basically, this is only their second year in conference, but they beat the Orange twice last year. Remember, they met in the ACC tournament, and that was a rout, about a 20-point victory for SMU last year. They also met at the Moody Coliseum down in Dallas last year, Eddie Lampkin's kind of return game home, and Syracuse really very well could have won that game. That was a heartbreaking 2-point loss, pretty much a buzzer-beating loss against SMU last season. So they're looking for their first victory against SMU since they have been ACC opponents. But what I was getting at earlier, SMU is in a spot where their NIL, their resources, based on what I have gleaned, and I really hesitate to dive into the NIL waters too much because that has been such a hot topic on these airwaves, and it feels like anytime I bring it up, people just want to yell and scream about it. But I'll do it anyway. SMU is in a better spot than Syracuse. From what I've been able to tell, they are ahead of the Orange in their resources. Not by much, and I don't think the roster difference is drastic here. But I say that to say that 5-10 years ago, SMU would have never been as good of a basketball program or winning more than Syracuse at the ACC Power Conference level. SMU has a whole lot of money. They have poured a whole lot of money into football, and they are doing very well in football. And they have poured a decent amount of money, it seems, into basketball, and they have one of the better guards in the country, really, I think, in Boopie Miller. When you look at his overall stats, Miller is 6th in the conference in points per game, about 19 points a contest. He's 2nd in the league in assists per game, right under 7 assists a game. So 19.2 points, 6.8 assists per game for SMU's starting point guard, Boopie Miller. Terrific name also. He hit that wild buzzer beater, remember, against Virginia Tech, basically a half-court heave to win a game earlier this year. And that is a huge win for them because it's a game like that if it had gone the other way, SMU might be firmly on the bubble right now. Instead, they are a projected 9 seed on ESPN's bracketology, according to Joe Leonardi. But he's very efficient, too. Boopie Miller, 47% field goal percentage, 41% from 3, and 87% at the free throw line. So you talk about 50, 40, 90. He is 47, 41, 87. That's pretty close. For a guy that's averaging 19 points and 7 assists per game, top 5 basically in the conference in both of those stats, to be near 50, 40, 90 is pretty darn impressive. So that is a big part of the assignment for Syracuse today, slowing down Boopie Miller. They do have 5 players that are averaging double-figure points per game. And again, it goes back to this is a great offensive team and a suspect defensive team. So knowing what Syracuse is, the formula for the Orange to win this game is to fall back on kind of what we saw from them in non-conference play, which is leaning on their defense and getting enough stops and getting SMU out of their rhythm and making sure that life isn't easy on a guy like Boopie Miller and he doesn't come in here and win this game single-handedly because he has that capability, SMU's starting point guard. So those are a couple early thoughts on the matchup and what will be on the line here for Syracuse this afternoon. It is a quad 2 game. Then they will have 4 straight quad 1 opportunities. The Orange at 14-11. SMU is 17-7 and slight favorites in this game. Projected to win on KenPom 81-78. Phone lines are open throughout our hour with you on the pregame show. Then we'll reconvene for our Burdick postgame show as well. And I'm sure you have plenty of thoughts after this one. We will go live right after the final buzzer on QSportsTalk.com. So if you're leaving the Dome and you want to tune in to our postgame coverage, ESPN Radio, QSportsTalk.com, or our Q Sports Talk YouTube page, which you can subscribe to and get a nice friendly reminder or notification whenever we go live. We can also dive into anything that you want to talk about regarding the basketball program right now. I did not have my show really very much this week. It was just one day this week. I was on the air on Monday for my drive time show, and then that led to, after we found out about John Wildsack and him announcing his retirement, led to me missing a lot of the important topics around Syracuse for the last 3 or 4 days. So if you'd like to call in and discuss the athletic director opening, the chancellor opening, how Syracuse should best handle this, we will open up the conversation to any of that as well. And we'll hear from Adrian Autry, run back his conversation on Orange Nation this week. If you missed that, we will have that for you here on our Burdick pregame show. So we're off and running, 315-437-7644 if you'd like to call in. That's 315-437-7644. Let's see if the Orange can keep the good times rolling inside the Dome. Wild win on Wednesday night. Lacrosse had an unbelievable game and victory last night against the number 1 team in the country, Maryland, which was great to see. Women's basketball in action tomorrow against Clemson at 2 p.m. So it is a dome stand here where the changeover crew is hard at work. They flipped it from lacrosse back to basketball, and we'll get you ready for Syracuse and SMU. You're listening to the Burdick pregame show here on QSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio. Boopy Scoopy. What's up, chat? Everyone watch a little Lax last night? That was fun. Thank you, Fly Guy. I appreciate you saying that. It's a great life, 97, so something we can all strive for. Yeah, Lax was incredible. Yeah, it's a winnable game for sure. It's the Booby Miller game. What was Booby Miles? Was that the Friday Night Lights star? Not the TV show, but the movie? Booby Miles, right? The return of Tito. What's up, Gavendo? Very nice of all of you to say that. I appreciate when the chat is nice and friendly, and good reminder that we've got a nice community in here. Just some days it can get a little out of hand, which is totally fine. It's a forum, but I do appreciate you guys saying, all of you that are saying sorry for your loss. Yeah, refs really did let him play, Theo. Schaller finally got one penalty on Spallina, but he was physical throughout the entire game. Oh, yeah, Brian was going after Tillman. Good to finally beat Maryland. John Tillman I like. I mean, I think he's a nice guy, but it's annoying to lose to the same team in the same way year over year. That crowd was incredible, Sport Boy. They announced 10,000, a little over 10K, and it felt bigger. But just another reminder that we do lacrosse right here in Central New York. That was fun. Yeah, Tiana honored tomorrow. Big game for the women's team, Ryan. Really a game that if they win that tomorrow, I think they're solidified in the tournament, because then you're talking about two tough road games you're projected to lose, NC State and Notre Dame, so you can't hurt your resume too much if you lose those. And then if you just take care of BC in the final game of the regular season, I think you'll be in the 9 seed range if you go 2-2 or you clip off Clemson and BC. So if you're in the 9 seed range, and as long as you just, don't lay a complete egg in the ACC tournament, you're fine. But if they lose the game tomorrow, then you're talking about, all right, they're on the bubble, and what do you have to do to make sure you're in the tournament? Clemson's solid, yeah. Yeah, he did, Theo. It wasn't that sad of a funeral because everyone was just sort of celebrating his life. I mean, you make it to 97. He was healthy, literally the picture of health for 96 and a half of his 97 years, and had a peaceful ending. So a lot to be thankful for there. I mean, we were mostly just swapping stories and sharing good memories. You're right. It is a nonfiction story. I shouldn't have phrased it that way, Tronic. Booby Miles. Booby Miles or Boopy Miller? Better name. I'd probably go Booby. That's just a hilarious name to be calling out when someone's running down the field. Yeah, I agree, Ryan. They could definitely beat Notre Dame and NC State. I'm just saying, if you're playing out, like, how do they fall off the bubble, losing those games, or fall onto the bubble, I guess I should say. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you. Yeah, 97's incredible. Clemson, Duke right now. So they'll have a slightly Easier turnaround.
Ford and Burdick Toyota pregame show.
Welcome back in on the Burdick pregame show, brought to you by our partners at Burdick BMW, Burdick Lexus, Burdick Ford, and Burdick Toyota. We roll along Syracuse and SMU, a 2 p.m. start from the JMA Dome this afternoon. Mustangs slight favorites in this game. They are 17-7 on the year. The Orange at 14-11 after taking down Cal inside the Dome. First win in a while. The type of win that was maybe somewhat unexpected and showed that they played to a level that we know they're capable of playing to, but they just haven't played to enough this season. And that was a good all-around team victory against Cal on Wednesday night. We'll see if the Cuse can build on that as they welcome in SMU this afternoon, an even tougher opponent. Mustangs are 35th in the net rankings. Let's hear a little bit from head coach Adrian Autry, his thoughts on the Cal game back on Wednesday night. We always get him on our Orange Nation show, which airs 12 to 2 p.m., here on ESPN Radio, QSportsTalk.com, every single weekday. And Coach Autry is always our guest at 1 p.m. on Thursday. We'll hear from Coach Autry on our postgame show live when he goes to the podium as well. But if you missed any of his conversation, we'll play that back for you right now. And Stephen Fonte and Paulie Sibilia, the two hosts of Orange Nation, it was Steve who started Coach Autry out and asked him just for his overall assessment on that wild victory in double overtime over Cal.
Yeah, I thought both teams really battled. I'll give a lot of credit to our guys. We were in some tough moments, and we got the stops that we needed, and guys stepped up and made plays on both ends of the floor. I thought it was, like I said, a tough fought game. I just thought our guys showed a lot of fight and being able to stay composed, in some, tough situations. And I thought, they came out and really band together to get the win.
Can you talk about Nate King's play? He's been great the past 4 games or so.
Yeah, I think Nate, has, like you said, Paul, he's been playing really good basketball. I think we have to do a little bit more to get him more involved. He's, even to our surprise, we thought, he was more of a, shooter, but I'm starting to realize that he's more of a scorer. He can score the basketball. He can put it on the floor. He can get to the rim. He can shoot. He's been a really good surprise for us defensively and as of late offensively. He's a guy that has been able to attack the rim and make shots and be efficient with the attempts that he's gotten.
As long as we're talking about individual players, you know that I love the way William Kyle plays, and he was awesome last night. 15 points, but the 16 rebounds. You spoke about him in the postgame press conference and said he was just he wasn't going to allow you guys to lose that game. What have you seen out of him really all season long? It seems like he just always shows up and brings his lunchbox with him and hard hat and whatever analogy you want to use, and just kind of does his job every night.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, he brings it, but last night was I think every person that's played, whether it's high school or college, that senior look, that senior moment of this is not going to happen. And he had that look last night, we're not going to lose this game. And his energy and his talk and his activity was just ferocious. And we need him to be that way down the stretch. We all have to be that way down the stretch. And I just thought he was, like you said, he just had a will. There was a will, and he was. So it's a moment at the end of the game where he cramps up and he still goes for the loose ball and saves it. That's the type of mentality and effort we need going down the stretch.
You mentioned a senior moment. Donnie Freeman against Virginia in the first half of last night kind of had freshman moments where he was struggling, but then he took over. He stepped up big last night in the second half in the overtimes.
I thought Donnie really responded well. I thought he had a really great reset. We talk about recovery a lot. I think that's something that we've really focused on, is being able to recover from a mistake, being able to recover for something, a bad call or whatever. I thought he really recovered when he went to the bench and came back in. And as of late, like you said, late in the game, I thought he took advantage of his opportunities. I thought he let the game kind of come to him. And I thought the guys did a good job of giving him the ball. And he was his activity was really good at the end on both ends of the floor.
Adrian Autry joining us here on the show, brought to you every week by Oswego County Mutual. And Coach, obviously 1-6 in your previous 7 games, and it was a win that you guys desperately needed. You get it. The way in which you did it, as you talked about, there was fight from the team there down the stretch. And for once, I said this to Paulie at the beginning of the show. For once, you got a couple of bounces going your way, right? I mean, did you need a game like this to maybe build upon? Do you think that you guys can build from this? You've still got a half a dozen games left here in the regular season. You got the ACC tournament. I know that there are tough opponents coming up, but do you feel like you can build from this one?
I think so. I think you always have to start from somewhere, right? And and it starts from one win. And I think like you said, Steve, in this game, I mean, I thought it was a well played game on both ends in regulation. Both teams battling. California's a really good team, really good offensive team. They beat Carolina, they beat Miami at their place. So again, this is a big game for them, just the way it's a big game for us. So I thought, it had like that playoff intensity, like that intensity to the game. And I thought, our guys really stepped up, and I'll be honest, I know the weather wasn't great and there wasn't a lot of people there, but the people that were there, that was big for us, especially going into those, last closing moments of important parts of the game. I thought our crowd was really good.
We did see Kyan Anthony play 14 minutes last night. He's obviously been in the headlines quite a bit the last week. Didn't play in the second half against North Carolina, then didn't play at all against Virginia, and then back in the lineup last night for 14 minutes. I know you had said that you didn't really want to touch on the Virginia game with him, but I just want to offer you up an opportunity. Anything you want to say about Kyan or his performance last night, or kind of getting back in the swing of things?
Yeah, I thought Kyan had some really good moments. He made a huge extra, we call it, one more pass to Nate Kings. I thought that was a great play. I thought, I thought he, played within what we were trying to do yesterday. And again, he's young, and I know, he's confident, and, we just got to, keep getting him better. And again, going down the stretch, we need all hands on deck for everyone. So again, every game is a different game, and, we talk about that, and we got to get prepared for SMU. But I thought, he made a really, really couple of good plays yesterday.
Well, we will get to SMU here in a moment. Coach, do we still have you? I think we may have lost our connection.
Here.
Oh, no. Okay, you're still there. Go ahead, Paul.
I did have a question for you, Coach, because it's funny. This year seems bonkers to me in the outside noise you guys are dealing with, from every way from how a guy eats a sandwich to to social media posts. Are you still able to keep that stuff out?
You know what? I think we've done a really good job. I know, obviously, it starts from me, and I've done the best job that since I've been in this job of keeping that out. And I think if I carry it with me, I think it brings it into the program and the guys. We're still practicing. We're still practicing hard. We still laugh. These guys are still competing. So again, can you block it all out? No, let's just be real. It's not. It's loud. This is basketball. This is like a big market for college basketball. This is a big program and a lot of passionate fans and the fan base and all of that. And that's what comes along with it. From me, my coaching staff, and everyone, we understand. And I think our guys have done a good job of handling it.
Before we get to SMU, we did want to get your thoughts on John Wildhack announcing his retirement yesterday. I know that you touched on it a little bit in the post-game press conference last night, but your reaction when you heard the news and your reaction to the news in general that John Wildhack is stepping down at the end of the year.
He talked, before the announcement, and then, I just wished him the best. I thought he did a really, good job in a challenging time. I know everyone thinks they know what's kind of have an idea, but they really don't. The way college athletics has just changed in this last, 7 years or 5 years with the NIL component and just the way programs are being built and what they need to be supported. I think, he did a really, he was there every day, and he was in the fight. Obviously, he gave me an opportunity, so, I just wish him well, and I was very thankful to be under his leadership.
And now you move on to SMU, and as you said, looking to try to build upon this now. Big win last night over Cal. You get another team that's in the middle of the pack in the ACC. If you could start stacking wins, you improve your seeding for the ACC tournament. What stands out to you about this SMU squad that you're going to see on Saturday?
Boopy Miller, he's a handful. I know he may be short in stature, but he's a big part of. He's one of the best point guards in our league. He's been that way the last couple of years. They're athletic, they're strong. Obviously, a very good offensive team and defensive team, high scoring team. So we'll have it'll be a fight. This is all these games now, which when you have the way the ACC is now, and I try to really, I think that's where you see how guys really get engaged. All of these things are coming down to quad 2, quad 1s. You string a couple of these games together, and you're right back in the mix. If we're still a quad 1 for people, that lets our guys know, like, hey, we got to handle our business. If we handle our business, then we can pick our heads up and see where we're at. So again, this is going to be, playoff intensity, a big fight again.
You brought up Boopy Miller. After dealing with Cal's point guard last night, does that help you guys get prepared in going into the next game?
It gives us a little bit. It gives us an idea of having a guard that is very ball dominant, that's crafty, that can maneuver around the court in traffic, without traffic. I think Boopy, shoots more threes than Day, but it gives us an idea. And I think our guys, we have, our older guys, they know Boopy, Starling and Nate George, they know who he is, so they're very familiar with his game.
All right, Coach. Good win last night, and good luck on Saturdays. You try to build from that one. We appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Coach Autry there always joins us on Orange Nation on Thursday. So that conversation from Thursday, right off the heels of that double overtime win over Cal, and good to get Coach Autry's thoughts there on our Burdick pregame show. We'll continue to work you towards the opening tip, 2 p.m. start inside the Dome at Syracuse and SMU, led by that star guard, Boopy Miller. Yes, you were hearing Coach Autry pronounce his name right. Boopy Miller is their best player. 19 points per game, 7 assists per game. We are live on QSportsTalk.com. We'll be back here on the postgame show, and we're taking your phone calls as well. Phone lines are open the remainder of our Burdick pregame show with you, 315-437-7644. If you'd like to call in, that's 4ESPN 44. We're back with more on the Burdick pregame show here on the QSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio.
This is
Boopy schmoopy, boopy, boopy, boopy. I'm hearing the promo of Steve telling Paulie to stop being a child because we've got breaking news. Syracuse last year against SMU in the ACC tournament, 73-53. Mustangs won. JJ 16 points. Jair Davis 14. Jaquan Carlos 2 points, 5 assists. Chris Bell off the bench, 7 points. What's Kyle Cuff been doing? I know not much, but it's a name I haven't thought about in a bit. Kyle Cuff. What have you done for me lately? I know he wasn't really playing at the start of the year for Mercer. Cuff is averaging 8 points per game for Mercer, 12 starts, 25 games played, 18 minutes per. Kyle Cuff, not much of a assister, that Kyle Cuff. He had like 10 assists in his Syracuse career, I think. 2 years, something like that. Maybe I'm selling him short. Probably more than that, but it was very little. Boopy Miller, 10 points, 4 assists in the ACC tournament last year. Potential spam is calling me. Wow, JJ really struggled against SMU in the regular season game. 3 for 17, 1 for 10 from 3. 10 points. Chris Bell had a pretty good game off the bench. 13 points, 3 for 5 from 3. Lampkin in his return game home, 10 points, 9 boards. Boopy Miller, 11 points, 5 assists. 4 for 9 shooting. Yeah, I'm a little tired, Supercat, of the JJ curling around by the free throw line and chucking it up like he's holding a bomb that's about to explode. He's done a lot of that play this year. Like, I've got to push this shot up really quickly in a floater because I can't shoot a jumper, and I think that's my game. It's just this like quick push. Cuse plus 15.5. That's not a line, right? Plus 1.5. Is that what you're saying, Cuse Sports Hour? Yeah, he's always been a disappointing finisher with his left hand for a guy that has publicly said he is left-hand dominant. He never uses his left hand. He always lays it up from the left side with his right hand, it seems like. But you make your own mind.
This is the Burdick Ford and Burdick Toyota pregame show.
Welcome back in on the pregame show where the phone lines are open if you'd like to chime in. 315-437-7644 at Syracuse and SMU from the Dome. Tip time at 2 p.m. this afternoon. Orange coming off a win. Believe it or not, they did take down Cal in double overtime on Wednesday night. This is a quad 2 game followed by 4 straight quad 1 games for Syracuse. They are projected to lose their next 5 games. SMU is a 9 seed on ESPN's projected bracketology. And when you look at this game from their perspective, this is a really important quad 1 game for SMU. They are 3-6 in quad 1 this year. You would like to be in the neighborhood of 4 or 5 quad 1 wins to probably feel good about their resume at the end of the year, maybe even more, depending on how it all shakes out for SMU. But right now, 3 quad 1 wins at this point puts them as a 9 seed. If they could get a quad 1 win today over Syracuse, they're projected to win by 3 on KenPom. The Vegas spread is tighter. I'm seeing 1.5 point favorites is SMU, according to DraftKings, ESPN Bet, sites like that. But the Mustangs at 17-7 on the year are actually projected to win 5 of their last 6 games. They're supposed to beat Syracuse here. 60% chance on KenPom to win this game this afternoon. They then host Louisville on Tuesday night. They're projected to lose that game by 1 point. After that, Boston College at home is an easy victory, according to the sites, and they will be heavy favorites in that game. Cal and Stanford on the road, not as much of a trip for SMU coming from Dallas, but still tough to make that West Coast trip. Played 2 games on the left coast out there, and Cal and Stanford, we know, are better than they were last year. They're actually projected to win both of those games by the exact same score on KenPom. Cal and Stanford, 80-77 projected wins on the road for SMU. Then Miami at home is a projected 4-point win. Florida State on the road to end the regular season, a projected 5-point victory for the Mustangs. Long way of saying they're supposed to play a lot of really close games the rest of the way. Outside of BC, every game is projected within 4 or 5 points. 5 points for Florida State is the most lopsided projection one way or the other. This is a very important game for SMU. If they want to make the tournament, they are a 9 seed. They lose this game, they probably slip back to the 10 seed range. Then they're in a spot where they are on the bubble, or at least hovering around the bubble more than they would be if they take care of business and win a quad 1 game on the road. Couple interesting stats about the Mustangs. They really are a very efficient 3-point shooting team, although they don't attempt a ton of threes. They're shooting second best 3-point percentage in the conference this year. Right now, they're hovering around 38% from 3-point range. That's top 20 in the country. But they're only making about 8 threes per game. So they don't settle for a ton of threes, but they are effective when they shoot them. Keep in mind, as I read off these stats, what I'm getting at is I don't know if this is a good team for Syracuse to zone against. Good 3-point shooting team, capable shooters up and down the roster. They've got some bigs that can stretch you out and shoot it. They don't turn it over much, and they're a very solid offensive rebounding team. 52nd on KenPom's national rankings for offensive rebound rate. That's one of the better offensive rebounding teams in the ACC. 35% of their opportunities to get an offensive rebound, they are getting them. So, good offensive rebounding team, good shooting team, pretty capable offensive team that plays within their system, really plays nicely together. 5 players averaging double figures in scoring. It would slow SMU down if they played zone, and I'm sure, given what we've seen from Coach Autry and Syracuse this year, they will go to the zone as a wrinkle if they feel they need a change up, which that's happened in a lot of scenarios where they go up against a team like this. I feel like, it's not really the best team for them to zone against, but they can't stop them man-to-man lately because this is a really good offensive team, just period. So if SMU starts scoring early and often in this game, I would not be surprised if Coach Autry goes to that wrinkle. I just don't know if this is necessarily the game where you go in and you think this is a team we should zone against more than normal. I don't see it that way at all. So that'll be something to monitor as it plays out. The other fascinating thing, SMU defensively not very good, 91st in the country on KenPom's defense. 38% of their opposition's points against SMU are coming from beyond the 3-point line. That is the 37th most in terms of point distribution given up to 3-point range in the country. In other words, teams are shooting a lot of threes against SMU, and they're pretty effective at making threes. The percentage of field goal attempts that are from 3-point range against SMU this year is 46%. Teams are also getting a lot of assists against SMU. 61% of field goals made against the Mustangs are assisted. That is 345th worst in the country. So only a couple teams in the nation are giving up more assists per field goals made. This could be a big game for Nathan George, potentially. Maybe if you're looking for prop bets, keep that in mind. High assist games, and usually SMU is vulnerable to giving up 3-point shots. We're thinking about Nate Kings. We're thinking about Tyler Betsy. Yes, Syracuse has been shooting okay of late from 3, but in general, they have not been a great 3-point shooting team. So it'll be interesting to see if SMU baits them into taking a lot of threes and how that plays out, given some of those stats. Remember last year, SMU had the home court advantage when they met in the regular season, 77-75 victory for the Mustangs. This time around, Syracuse will be hosting SMU. This is the first time they've hosted SMU as an ACC opponent. Home court advantage in favor of the Orange today. That is always brought to you by Marriott Syracuse Downtown. Your home advantage for breakfast, lunch, or dinner any day. Home of the home game tailgate and unbeatable with free parking and a $2 shuttle to and from any Syracuse home game. If you're thinking about where to park right now, go to the Marriott Syracuse Downtown, $2 shuttle, free parking to and from any Syracuse home game at the Hotel Syracuse, Marriott Syracuse Downtown. We'll do our keys to the game, our dream outcome on the other side, and maybe make our prediction as well. That's next on the Burdick pregame show.
Evan Canty and Michelle.
Let's see. What we got, Philly? Points per possession. They're middle of the pack nationally against zone, but top 15% against man. Okay. Raw percentages are incomplete information. I'm just going off the old eye test, Philly. I think that's useful information too, but I haven't really loved the zone defense throughout the year simply because how they rebound in the zone. And my concern would be when you're measuring a typical zone compared to Syracuse's zone, they're vulnerable to offensive rebounding, and SMU could get them there. I agree. Super Cat, be nice for them to be a little more disruptive on D than they have been. It's going to be a tough task today, though. Hard to push pace and play zone, though, with what you said, Philly. I mean, right? I guess if you're getting deflections and steals, but they just haven't been great in zone or man-to-man, I feel like, at getting that. We'll see how it plays out. Well, in general, if you're not getting deflections or steals in the zone, Syracuse is, whenever you're playing zone defensively, you're making the game slow down a lot in terms of how the offensive team is playing, how often they have the ball on offense. The time of possession length for Syracuse's teams when they were playing zone really slowed down the opposition's offense. So you've got to get steals, you've got to get deflections to get transition chances, and are we confident they can do that in the zone? We'll go through the history of the Syracuse program, and they typically have played at a slower pace, especially in the last handful of years because of the zone. When they're, if you go back to kind of end of the Boeheim era, and especially look at how often their defensive, like average possession length on defense for them. So I would say, if I felt better about SMU being more turnover prone, maybe. Yeah. When we're thinking about the glory days of Syracuse, of course, we're thinking up-tempo, we're thinking the zone, athletes getting out and running, which they do have athletes, and they've been able to do that in spots this year, but statistically, they have not been great at getting steals. Syracuse is 159th in the country at steal rate right now. They were really, really bad last year. Like, I think it was like 350 something, 347 last year. This year, 159. I don't know, I kind of feel like they might win this game. I don't know if it really means anything, but yeah, I agree, Philly. They definitely got a legit chance. I could see betting them. I think I did say yesterday on Orange Nation that I think they're going to lose by 9, but now I'm sort of like, I can see them winning.
This is the Burdick Ford and Burdick Toyota pregame show.
Final segment on the pregame show. Couple notes before we bid you adieu, and you can listen to the game on TK Classic Rock and 99.5. Syracuse Sports Network from Learfield. Akir Suare seems to be a game-time decision, looking like he will be out in this game today. Been dealing with back spasms, and it seems like he will not be available, but we'll see on that front. Keep that in mind as you're watching the game today. Keys to the game always brought to you by Drivers Village, dvoffers.com, powered by Drivers Village. I will say for keys, it's all about defense for Syracuse in this game because SMU is such a talented offensive team. You also need to keep SMU off of the offensive glass. That would be an important key. And I think Nate Kings needs to continue to play how he has been playing, and hopefully they can get SMU from beyond the arc a little bit, shoot a little bit better from three-point range. That all kind of ties into our dream outcome, which is brought to you by the Liverpool Pool and Spa. Don't just dream it, live it with the Liverpool Pool and Spa. I would say Syracuse wins this game, is what my gut is telling me right now. They're 1.5-point underdogs. I'm going to say they do get this victory inside the dome. It wouldn't mean necessarily a ton, but it would be nice to get on the post-game show and talk after back-to-back wins and have some positive vibes around the team, at least, albeit brief positive vibes probably because Duke is coming up on Monday. But that is that for our Burdick pregame show. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll be right back here on CuseSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio for the post-game show after the final buzzer. Until then, enjoy the game.